Hey guys, welcome back to another Foxtrot hunting video. Today I wanted to quickly recap my 2021 season in Michigan and update you guys on how everything ended up playing out for me this year in my home state. The last video I posted was on October 15th, where I showed my encounter with a nice 10-point on opening day at a property that I actually got permission for the first time this year. In the spring and summer of 2021, I decided that I wanted to try and challenge myself and knock on doors for private land permission. In short, I was able to get 3 different properties within 5 minutes of our house to hunt this year. One was a 20-acre parcel, another was a 46-acre parcel, and the last one was a 100-acre parcel, all with varying landscapes and features. So to recap this season properly, we have to go back to October 17th. And on October 17th, I was hunting at the 20-acre property. I ran trail cameras at this property almost all summer, and based on the intel from those cameras, the 20-acre parcel was actually my favorite parcel and the one that I was looking forward to hunting the most. I had 2 bucks in particular that I was really focusing on. One was a really wide 9-pointer that I was jokingly calling Rampola, and then another tall and tight 9-pointer that was almost exclusively nocturnal. October 17th was the Sunday after getting back from our buddy Jack Schultz's cabin up in northern Michigan for the weekend. He invited us up there and we made a whole video on that trip up there. But while I was in the stand on that Saturday, the tall and tight 9 walked right by one of my trail cameras. Rampola also showed up in daylight that weekend on the morning of the 16th. So when I headed back home on the 17th, the anticipation was at an all-time high.
Finally all set up. It's pretty windy today, but I got a good wind from the spot, and 2 shooter bucks came through here. The last 2, last night and yesterday morning. I'm feeling pretty good about myself today. As soon as I got to the base of the tree, there was a doe feeding like 60 yards away from me. I climbed the little tree, just keeping my eye on her, and she never spooked or saw me once. So I have some wing cover, but it's good to know that I'm being that quiet. Hoping one of those shooter bucks comes through tonight. But we'll see.
So I never saw a shooter buck that evening, but at 2:30 in the morning, the tall and tight 9 showed up 25 yards from the spot that I was hunting at that night. I hunted the same spot the following morning, but only had small bucks come through and a handful of turkeys as well. So I took the next few days off and didn't sit in the tree again until October 22nd. The day before this, on October 21st, the tall and tight 9 showed up again, and this was the first picture that I got that truly showed off his size and the height for the first time. Unfortunately, I was not able to hunt this night, and this was only the second daylight picture that I got of him all year. The next morning, I went into that spot and had a bunch of activity. I had a small buck come within 10 yards of me and rake a tree, and then I had another buck come pretty close and started bristling up and chasing some small bucks off around the does. But I never saw a shooter buck that morning or evening. The following morning was a hunt that I was really looking forward to. We had a 15-degree temperature drop, and I was going back to the 100-acre property that I had not hunted for over a week now. I was planning on leaving for Indiana and Kansas in 3 days for 2 consecutive weeks. And so going into this, I knew that I was going to try and have to make something happen.
All right, it is October 22nd. I'm so bad at dates. October 23rd. I'm in the spot where I had a shot at that buck opening morning, and just wasn't set up in time, and could have made a shot, but it would have been a rush shot and not something I want to do or feel confident in. So when I was walking in this morning, I had 4 or 5 deer in the field that spooked. Then I got all set up, and about 30 minutes after first light, I had 2 does pop into the field. And then a small buck came through and was grunting and following the one doe. I had a picture of a really nice buck about 100 yards from here last night. I think he's the 9-pointer that I've been getting on camera pretty frequently. I'm hoping he's in the area and comes within range this morning.
Meh, 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 meh.
Am I recording? Oh my gosh. I don't. I do not understand what just happened. That was that 9-pointer, I'm almost positive. Really nice buck. He went to the scrape where my cell cam's at right now. I don't even know if my camera got him. So I put my binocs up, and I can't tell if it's a buck or a doe yet. And then all of a sudden, he starts sprinting right at me. Like full trot. So I quickly turned the camera on, grabbed my bow, got my release ready. And he's just coming right at me, and I drew. And he looked up at me when I drew. And I just held it there. And then he came broadside. 30 yards, just like that buck on opening morning. I mean, maybe less. "27 yards. And I tried to get him to stop. And he just kept going. Maybe I drew too soon, but I had to draw. And I wasn't gonna try and do like a frontal shot. I could have, but I've never done that on a deer, and I don't know enough about it. I know on an elk you can make that shot, but you don't see it often on a deer.
The next few days I hunted on and off, but didn't have any major encounters. And then on October 26th, I left for Indiana and Kansas. And if there's one lesson that I learned this year in Michigan, it's to not leave on Halloween weekend. The weekend of Halloween and the first few days of November were by far the most active times I had on my trail cameras. Rampolla and the Tall 9 and the buck that I started calling Bolt because of the one morning when he sprinted at me all showed up on my cameras in daylight. Indiana was relatively slow, and I can't really complain about Kansas because I ended up shooting the biggest buck of my life in Kansas this year on November 4th, my first buck ever in Kansas. But fast forward to November 10th, and I am back in Michigan and hunting in the same tree as opening day, where I had the encounter with Bolt right before I left.
Alright, today's November 10th. I'm sitting in the tree where I've had two opportunities this year. One was at a buck on opening day, and then the second one was a couple weeks ago right before I left for Indiana and Kansas on a buck that came trotting in, a nice 9-pointer that I've seen consistently in this area on camera, not in person. But he hit this scrape and then mad dashed it right to my tree. I have the decoy out tonight. I'm hoping to catch a buck coming into the field, trying to scent check the downwind side of the doe bedding over here. And hopefully he comes into the decoy and gives me a shot. So we'll see who shows up. There's a really nice buck in the field. And I don't know if you can see this in the video, but the decoy is sitting on top of this hill. And he's kind of below it, and I don't think he can see it. I think it's him and a doe. I tried rattling, I tried grunting, but the highway's so loud I don't think it can hear it. You can hear me clashing the antlers a couple times, but I don't think he knew for sure what it was. So I'm debating if I get down right now and try and move the decoy into a spot where he can see it on top of the hill, but it's super risky.
I had multiple pictures of this buck over the summer, and some point before the season, he broke off both of his G4s to little stubs. And for disclaimer, I'm not big on naming bucks, especially when it comes to permission property that I don't actually own. But for the sake of the video and for the sake of storytelling, it just makes it easier if you give a buck a name versus saying the Talon Type 9. I didn't hunt for most of Michigan's gun season, and the next time I was in the tree was on December 1st at the 100-acre property. A few days prior to this, I hung a lock-on in a cedar near a bedding area in a tree that was about the size of a water bottle, the width of a water bottle. And this was really the only tree that I could hang in to get close enough to the bedding area where I suspected a lot of these deer were hanging out. And so that evening, with 30 minutes left of shooting light, Bolt popped out in front of me at 65 yards. Over the next 20 minutes, I grunted at him only for him to turn his head around, look, and continue working away from me. And it wasn't until I decided to snort wheeze at him that he turned all the way around and started coming towards me. So I forgot my zoom lens on this hunt, so the footage isn't great, but eventually he circled downwind of me, never presenting a shot closer than 55 yards. The next day, I actually went and knocked on the door of one of the neighbors to the south of this property. And for most of the year, the whole year up until this point, I had been accessing from the north. It was the only way to access this property without getting permission from the adjacent landowners. So only being able to access from the north really limited my options depending on the wind. So I was hoping that accessing from the south would catch one of these bucks off guard and just change up my access pattern. A couple of days later, my brother came down and I took him out hunting with me for the first time. He's never hunted before, so it was cool because it was his first time in the tree. And I actually gave him a lot of my old gear, and he plans to buy a bow this coming fall, in fall of 22, and hunt for the first time. But this evening was a very, very windy evening, and we didn't see anything until about 3 minutes left of shooting light. And as I was lowering down my bow, my brother said that he saw something but really wasn't sure what it was. And sure enough, it was Bolt and Stubbs walking into the field together 300 yards away. Quickly slipped out of there as we weren't sure if they were going to start heading our way, and no more than an hour after we left, Bolt walked down the exact same trail that we walked down as we were leaving. The next and last time that I hunted for the season was on December 21st. I was still getting pictures of Bolt and Stubbs and felt really good that they made it through the gun season, and by this point I started really wondering if I should let them go until the following season. This is obviously a tremendous risk, especially in Michigan, just because the hunting pressure is so high, anything can happen. But I felt that if these bucks made it through the winter, they didn't get poached, and they didn't, die or get hit by a car, I felt that they had a really good chance of making it until the next year. The other obvious risk is that this is a permission property. So I'm not guaranteed to hunt on this property again next year, but I told myself before this hunt that it was a risk that I was willing to take. And I distinctly remember before going out this evening that I told myself I would not shoot stubs. And at this point, I was really only going to shoot bolt if we happened to cross paths.
That was the buck that I had a chance at on opening day. And he was just around me for like 25 minutes at 30 yards. I told myself when I came out here tonight that I would only shoot that 9-pointer. And it was so hard to stick with that when he was 30 yards in front of me. I have so many pictures of that buck, and I think I'm gonna call him Stubbs, because he's a 10, but his G4s are basically stubs from breaking them off. And I think he's a 2.5-year-old, maybe 3.5-year-old, but if he lives through winter, he is gonna be a nice buck next year. If I don't get permission here again and he lives, I mean, at least he'll be a nice buck for somebody. So as hard as it was to make that decision, I think it's the right one.
So that wraps up my 2021 season in Michigan, guys. I have a lot to be thankful for this year. I learned a ton. To top it all off, on January 1st, the day after New Year's, I got a picture of Bolt and Stubbs together at 8:30 in the morning. So I'm hoping that this is a foretelling sign going into the 2022 hunting season. If I can get permission at this spot again, I will be sure to bring you guys along for the journey, and hopefully I can catch up with these bucks again next summer. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and as always, shoot straight, stay still.